GIMI think tank was put together during the COVID-19 crisis period. And what we said was, why don't we get all of our members together and discuss different issues and share ideas? From that, over the 2 years, we've been meeting every week, and we've evolved since then. And we evolved into talking about what's going on in terms of 3 specific buckets. Number 1, on innovation. What are the great new trends that are going on in the world that allows us to imagine the future? And if we can imagine the future, you guys, us together, we can create that future. Number 1. Number 2, what are the great trends that are going on in innovation management, new ways to innovation management? Ron has been championing this as one of the most important things for us to follow up on, whether it's innovation 4.0, which is digitization of innovation, whether it's AI entering into innovation itself through visualization, simulation, gamification, and other shuns that we can put together to combine that idea. The third one is, of course, what's going on in specific countries, specific examples of innovation, stories of innovation, and everything else. Last week, we had a speaker from Volvo talking about how hard it is to drive innovation corporations in Sweden. He has done this in 3 different companies, from Bombardier, Volvo, and others. This week, if you can put the panel that you had, Laura, so we can introduce our speaker. Is a speaker that I saw present ideas in Colombia last year at Innova Latam, Joanna, and she talked about this Geek Girls Latam, and basically talked about how we can actually drive innovation and drive gender equality and other things which are important in our society. Just at a high level, 50% of our population is female. Is 50% of our innovation community female? If that was the case, then maybe there'll be more innovations which will be targeting female ideas and opportunities. Are we driving, supporting innovation inside our organizations so that we're inclusive of ideas of females, males, also other underrepresented people? And so this is a really good, interesting topic that I sat there and I was mesmerized. I was like, this is really interesting. This is something that we should be doing more about everywhere around the world. And I'm really glad Joanna agreed to come and do this talk with us and share what she's been doing in Colombia. And then from Colombia, I'm hoping that she'll be able to get networks from you guys to maybe even take it and run pilots in other parts of the world. And we let us as GIMI be the change in this change that we're going to do. So with that, Joanna, let's put you on the camera and just say hi to each other and maybe discuss a little bit before we get you started. Joanna, just where were you born? Where are you from?
Good morning, everyone. I'm here in Bogota right now, but I'm soon traveling. But I'm very proud and happy to meet everybody from all over the world. I see that we are here like in different time zones. So I'm very happy to meet you guys. And thanks a lot, Hatendra, for this invitation, for inviting me to talk about a topic which I love a lot. And we had the opportunity to talk about last year in the innovation in Innova Latam last year in Cartagena. So, and thank you everyone for being here to try to learn a vision I brought today on how to innovate on the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal 5, number 5, which is about equality, especially gender equality.
Joanna, before you carry on, just a couple of, just so people can get to know who you are and all that. So, okay. Where did you study? Did you study in Colombia? Did you study internationally? Where was your education from?
Yes, I was born here in Colombia, and most of my education has been here so far. I studied at a business school, but I did my postgrad studies, a master in Spain.
In Spain, okay.
In Spain, good. Yeah. And I've been living in Spain, in Canada, of course, in Colombia. But I keep traveling a lot. I define myself as a digital nomad. So I keep traveling every 2 weeks. I'm in a different part of the world. So someday I will be seeing you guys.
We hope so. Joanna, one of the things that I've been very impressed about Colombia is wherever I've been, whether it's in the Ministry of Science or any of the chambers of commerce, of any position of power, there are a lot of women in high position, even compared to the US, and even compared more to my colleagues from Norway. And I would like you to, as you give your presentation today, what is it about Colombia where the representation of women in positions of innovation, positions of power, we are seeing I would still not say a fair representation, but a greater representation than in most countries on the planet. So if you can make sure you talk about that, because that's one of the things that I've always been impressed about Colombia, is a force that has been liberated or unleashed, that is doing amazing things. And some maybe what you guys are doing a part of that, but tell us how we can do this in other parts of the world also. So with that, I'm going to give you the floor, Joanna, and I'm going to let you talk about your presentation, okay?
Okay, thank you. Okay. Regarding that question, although in the world, the average of women, for example, in power positions or politics is around 20. In Colombia is above 40. And this is what I think is that we have done the job in terms of activism, active activism. You know what I mean? Is that we women have understood the power of joining together and raise our voices, especially those that are in power positions, those that are, for example, in C-level or senior positions, that they have this, how to say that, this, yeah, like that direct way maybe, or power to talk to politicians, to talk to government, to talk those that are making decisions. So that has pushed a lot of groups of women, or collective of women in different levels of society. So one of the things is that we are very active, that we join together. And something recently that we have done in the last, I would say maybe 2-3 years after pandemic or during pandemic on, is that we want men as an ally. So that's important, that you men are a friend of us in terms of join us to fight this, join us to start closing these gender gaps, because at the end, this is something that I'm going to talk in the presentation, is we are talking about here economy, we're talking about here social development, we're talking about here half of the population being behind. So imagine that half of the population be pushed forward. So we will have a different maybe world in terms of prosperity, social justice, etc. So I think that, and also part of the public policy is now that at least 30%, but of course that's not mandatory to have the 30 exactly. So what recent governments have done so far is to have at least the 50%, so 50% of positions in the government and all public institutions, women.
Got it. Good.
And, yeah.
So look, you got a network of people are listening, try and recruit them, make them change. Half of them are men, maybe 3/4 are men, and make them your allies. But certainly for everybody listening in, I think you're going to hear a great story from Joanna, and she's got ideas. She's working in the Middle East with kingdoms, also in trying to get gender equity and other places. So she has knowledge. Lean in, listen, and then let's get ready to ask her hard questions. Joanna, it's your presentation. Feel free to put your slides up.
Yeah, thank you, Hatindra. And one last thing to add that, of course, I'm going to keep saying in the presentation is that the workforce in the private sector is very important, that also join this 50-50, and especially those board positions. Now, women in boards are very important to help organizations move forward. So I'm going to start presenting now. Let me share my screen. You can let me know if it is now.
I can see it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Let me, and I close this a little bit. Good. Okay, so I'm Joanna Prieto, as I said before in the presentation, and the co-founder of Geek Girls Latam, which is a nonprofit organization, but it's also a women-led community. It's pioneering in Latin America, tackling this gender huge gap we have in terms of STEAM areas, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math areas. So my idea for this presentation today is to show you how we have so far introduced a systemic approach in order to close this gap. So I'm going to move forward. So just for you to know that the Sustainable Development Goal number 5 is gender equality, which main goal, it has a lot of little objective inside, but the main goal is to achieve the gender equality and empower all women and girls around the world. It has topics related, for example, to violence, to human rights, education, access to technology, access to decision-making positions, to power, to politics, etc. So the idea is that this half population around the world has the right, that in some places, of course, we do have the right, but maybe in practice, we don't. Means that we are not in the positions, we are not making politics, we are not leading organizations, we are not in the society as an active roles, having active roles that help humanity in different areas to develop and evolve as we really wanted. So one of the areas is of course science and technology, which is the one we are dealing in my organization. I'm going to explain it a little bit later, but I wanted to start with this sentence, which I love a lot, and is to educate a woman and you educate her family. Educate a girl and you will change the future, because you are really educating a nation or a society or a community. Something that is very true when we talk about gender equality is that we women have this sense of community, this sense of caring for others. I'm not saying, and I'm going to make this disclaimer, that I'm not saying that men do not. No, what I'm saying is that we women, we have more sense of this caring for others. So in that way, statistics also have shown that, for example, mothers, single or married or in the family, they do want her children to study. They immediately want her children to study and to continue going forward, and especially those mothers who have studied or who have superior education, especially those, they have the sense to help their children or want their children to also have this superior education. So in this sense, what the gender equality in the specific objective says, education, or we should educate and have access to education to every girl and woman in the world. And this is not true in most of the countries. And we have recently seen in the news how, for example, some countries in the Middle East, they have now forbidden this access to education to women. So let's see some of the numbers that maybe support why we should care about this. So first thing to consider, maybe as we are here talking about innovation, talking about how we reimagine the future, is the lack of data. lack of data is one of the biggest problems we have here, because this is a recent goal that the world has endeavored. So it means that we really have to care about how to measure and bring data to start like moving forward toward policies. No? For example, only the 13% of the countries dedicate a budget to gender statistics. So this can be the first question to you, to your countries, to your organizations, or the communities you're leading maybe, is that, are you measuring gender statistics? Are you measuring your countries? Most countries, of course, are creating something that is called the gender balance observatories, which is something, for example, that are now supporting the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, how they wonder now how to create this observatory, and that's something that we are now supporting with the World Bank. But of course, in Latin America, for example, most of our countries in the region, they now have different observatories. So they are observatories with public funds, but there are also private observatories that help, that process information and help us to have a better data, because that will be the second consideration in this issue. Okay, we have data, but the quality of data is very important too. 50% of the countries, for example, have legislation that mandates specialized gender-based surveys. So it's important that we, of course, create or collect the data, but we also have this quality of data, quality in terms of, for example, or in order to create better policies that really tackle problems. And only 41% of countries regularly produce violence against women data. And this is very important, and the legal parts or the legislations in the countries or in the organizations too, because that's important also to reflect if my organization, my company has policies towards gender, for example, this sexual or harassment, etc., in organizations, that you see that nowadays in the news, you see everywhere that this public figure was sued because of a harassment, etc. No? So this is very important. So data on the very factors that impact women and girls is largely missing. That's the message with this slide. So the lack of data makes it harder to accurately identify, analyze, and monitor the separate needs and vulnerabilities of women and girls, and of course, men and boys. So the politicians of the public, the government can create proper policies and solutions. Other data I wanted to share with you today is the unpaid care or domestic work, which is something that many governments and organizations are now dealing with. If we consider that women, we are around the 60% of the population, we are like 56 around percent of the population, but this is not a working population, which means that there's a lot of us, I'm talking about women, of course, that are not paid because of the job we do, especially that job we do at home, which is the domestic work. So we generally don't think to pay our moms or our grandmas or the women maybe that care for us at home, because we consider this is maybe this motherhood or this domestic work is for granted, is that because you are a mother, you just have to be at home and maybe not be paying. And there's a lot of discussion about this. The thing is that 9 of every 10 carers, I mean, people who work as a caring person, is a woman. And these 9 of the 10 are not paid care or domestic work, at least compared to men. So women and girls perform the most of the unpaid care and domestic work combined with paid work. This leaves women and girls working longer hours with less time for rest, less time for self-care, less time for learning, less time for other activities, such as, for example, political participation or being an active social actor in the society. No, so this is very important. How we are also seeing this issue. And this one, which is exactly the one we tackle every day, is the one in the STEM areas, in science, technology, engineering, and math. And you can see to your left, I think it's your left, is the funnel, comparing the female-male tech career funnel. Now, what we see is that since early childhood, we lost 7 women, 7 girls of every 10 in the funnel. So only around 3 of the girls shows any interest in this area. So they continue through the funnel. So we have these 2 of every 10 students in STEM areas are women. 2 of every 10 in Colombia, 3 of every 10 workers in the industry are women, and only 1%, 1.5% in the world are women in this C-level or senior positions in the industry. I'm talking about this industry, especially comparing to men. So of course, there's a huge gap here. And we can also see here how's our leadership in the industry. For example, in terms of being a CEO of an organization, a senior level, middle, junior level. So what we can see is that we are mostly represented maybe in the base of the pyramid, but not at the top, which is exactly the place where decisions are made, where policies are created. And this is true to the industries, most of the industries, and this is also true to the government, to the most public institutions. So that's a huge problem, as we are most of the population, we are a majority in the population around the world, but we are not in the decision-making positions. I'm going to move forward then. So seeing this data, what we can consider now is that when definitely we women do better, and not because we are doing bad as a human, but we as a society should start thinking that we really need to include women in society. Economies do better. Economies do better. I'm going to show you in numbers that really economies do better. So, for example, only in organizations, these are some 4 facts I wanted to share with you. 4 facts that says that if we work in an inclusive organizational culture, or simply if organizations start working in gender with gender lens, let's say, their numbers will improve. So at least the budgets improve at least 2 times as likely to meet or exceed the financial targets, especially when we have women on boards, or at least we have women also making decisions here. At least 3 times are likely to be high performing. We women do care about others también, is also. So leaders, if we have women in leadership positions, we are not only caring about numbers, figures, of course, money, but also about people. And when we do care about people in organizations, performance increases. Around 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile, which are two of the many soft skills that today are required to shine, let's say, in a job or the future of jobs, of work. Why? Because we know that innovation is a collective effort. Innovation requires creativity. Innovation requires interaction with others. Innovation requires communicative skills. Innovation requires a lot of soft skills that we women have developed more. And that's very important, and of course to be agile, and 8 times at least more likely to achieve better business outcomes. You can find some of these facts in Deloitte Insights and many other studies. So I just wanted to bring you this, which I consider are very important for this community. So this is a sentence that I brought to the Congress last year, which definitely, that's why I consider this should be a systemic approach, and how innovation, of course, can here be very important to start dealing with these complex problems of society. And it's that definitely when you think that you can know it all, or you have it all, or you can solve it all alone, you're most likely to fail. So a systemic approach here is very important, because it helps you open your mind to build with other solutions, especially these complex problems that society struggle with, because most of the solutions, this goal, this SDG goal, they consider that the problem is the women, that the problem is the girl, and we are not the problem. The problem is bigger, is broader in terms of mentality, for example, in terms of mindset of society that has been for so long governed with a male approach. So it's very important here that we join together. And when I talk about joining together, is to call and sit down with the private sector, with the public sector, with the academia, with the media, with families, mother and father, of course, everyone, to really bring here solutions, because everybody has a different vision and point of view. We have different visions on how to perceive and how to solve. So it is important when we think as in a systemic approach that definitely we don't know it all. We don't know it all. And I've seen how many initiatives around the world have failed because it is, for example, just a public vision on how to solve the problem, and the solution hasn't been enough to solve the problem. Why? Because they think that they are the public sector and they are the ones who can do it. Or you cannot have it all at the end, because this is a problem that requires everybody giving its own part, and you cannot solve it all, definitely. So the invitation here is to reflect and think that if you're working, for example, in your organization, your community, or your space, how to deal with this and how to implement gender equality policies. So I start listening to people, and a lot of people. And in this sense, I'm going to say that Geek Girls Latam, my organization, the one I co-founded, since the ADN, since the beginning, since the origin, we started listening to people. Everybody was invited to join a community. We were born first as a community. And being as a community, we received a lot of visions, men, women, public, private, academia, social sector, of course, everybody, to start like having conversations, open conversations on how we should understand this, because many people at the very beginning thought, is there a gender gap? Is this important? Why should I care? I'm a business owner. I don't have any relationship with this. So at the very beginning, we heard a lot of people saying, this is not my problem, sorry. So during all this year, all these 10 years, now we've seen how this mindset, how my beliefs, how my unconscious bias have turned into a different consciousness, let's say, and it has opened now the debate on how I do really care or should care, no matter if I'm a father, a mother, a business owner, a collaborator, a change agent, no matter. So in this sense, Geek Girls created a model, inspire, empower, and connect female talent in Latin America in this area. So what we do is to commit with the future generation, what we call Generation STEAM. What we do, which was systemic, which the very beginning. So we have this funnel I showed you before. So we endeavored in the task to start researching, study, talking to people, to fathers, to mothers, I mean, parents in general, families, leaders, everybody that could be involved and in somehow being impacting girls and women's life. And we created what we call today the Geek Girls Journey in order to this generation, STEAM generation. So what we do, observe, listen, and co-create. So everybody is part of the solution. Every party should be part of or should be carried literally about gender equality around the world. And it's not only in STEAM areas or just at home or just at a specific area or a space. It's everywhere we have gender bias. So observe, listen, and co-create will give us the chance to listen everyone's, or at least most of everyone's point of view regarding the problem, so we can have common visions. We secondly created a manifesto. This manifesto was very important for us because it gave us literally the road mapping to move forward. That's what we are doing nowadays. But this manifesto, we invited everyone to share a common vision, but specifically a purpose. And that's something that I really want to emphasize here. Purpose is very important. So you as individuals share your purpose, and when you share your purpose, you will find more people there outside in society to say, okay, I really care about your purpose because I feel it's also mine. So we start working together. So we motivate each other because we have a common purpose, a common vision. So in the manifesto, around 400 people, companies, brands signed our manifesto and are the ones who we are working with now. Third, we create and educate our own system, ecosystem. And this is very important, and this is very true, to create an ecosystem. No matter what my organization, company, or purpose, of course, is, you should not only create a community, but you should create an ecosystem around it and educate it. Because imagine, we've been here, working here for 10 years, and it's just recently the world speaking loud about this gender issue. So at the very beginning, 10 years ago, when I was sitting with businessmen, they were like, what are you talking about, Joanna? I don't care about this. Now they call me and say, Joanna, let's meet together because I need to support your job. I need talent. I need women. And it's not only because I need it, but it's because I just changed my mind and said, okay, women are really important in my organization to move forward, to think in my future, to innovate, etc. Impact more than girls and women. Let's make this question: who else influences them? Who else influences a girl? Who else influences a woman? In this sense, the systemic approach says, okay, we have to go and talk to parents, but because when we were training girls and women in their study space, let's say, everything was perfect. But soon they arrived home, things changed. Why? Because mother or father said, no, just forget that. You're not that. You're not going to be that. Start doing your domestic job. You maybe will be this or this, but never being considered in the STEM areas. So what we do was to educate families now, because we have gender bias, unconscious bias. And the same happened in organization with leaders, with co-workers. The same happened in every space a woman is present. Build with others in this systemic approach is very important. So that's why we call governments, we call organizations, we call other social institutions to work with that closely with us and keep innovating. This is education is an area in which we still have a lot to innovate, to do. And this is only true, I consider, if you do it with others. And this is some of the areas we have impact. We have so far taken our region. We have and noticed that besides the fact that we have invited many times Colombian government to work closely with us, we haven't done it yet. But we really hope so someday. We have done it with the Canadian government, for example. And I said this because these figures you see here, you maybe see, oh, well, they are no millions of numbers, but this is a huge effort for a nonprofit. And most of these results, we have done it with the help of this systemic approach, with the help of this creation of our own ecosystem, of our own community, everybody supporting the purpose. So every day more Purple Hearts, as we represent our organization, or what we do is definitely to join our efforts thanks to the willingness, collaboration, talent of many, that we're able to continue building Geek Girls Latam, which is definitely revolution for us. These are some of the brands that so far have trusted Geek Girls. You can see here multinationals, you can see here multilaterals too, the World Bank, the Immigration Organization. We have our universities, we have private sector, social sector, recently financial sector. For example, McDonald's, you see, McDonald's is the first brand in the world, the international brand in the world, which is in most of the countries. And we were the first, and so far the only social brand that joined McDonald's to have 2 campaigns to talk about these topics. And again, we can make the difference if we really consider that we can help each other in the missions we have. We have received a lot of awards, a lot of recognitions. Me, myself, especially, have received a lot of recognitions. But which is important is that the power of everyone is being represented in these awards. So gender equitable education system help keep both girls and boys, of course, in school, building prosperity for entire countries. So what we really want is that education should be a right and is a right to everybody, but in the practice is not for everybody, and in that sense, girls and women are most affected. This is a view of a systemic approach of the Sustainable Development Goals, how the 17 SDG goal, which is partnerships for the goals, should be across all. And if we compare it to what Geek Girls has done so far, is exactly the same. How an individual shares her purpose, in this case, me and other women, start joining as a collective, sharing a common vision, sharing a purpose, and then finally creating an ecosystem around this to create a solution that is finally what Geek Girls Latam is. So this is my presentation for today. Hope you don't get bored. This is gender equality is not a women issue. It is definitely a human issue, and it affects us all if we don't act today. So thanks a lot. You have there my handle on Twitter and my email in case you just want to write it. Send me some messages and open now to questions. Thank you very much.
Joanna, that was great. Let's make sure let's get the heads up there so we can see each other. Good. First, congratulations. This is remarkable what you're doing and what you're talking about and the importance of that. The thing is, I think in many parts of South America, North America, Europe, and Asia, I think there is an awareness and an understanding that we're not taking advantage of the fact that there's talent, there's brains, there's resources of humans, females, who can contribute tremendously. And there's awareness of that for sure. And in a few places there isn't as much awareness. What hasn't happened as much is this actions which somehow start translating into results, where we see the same number of females in the boardrooms, in the executive suite, and in teams that we form for what we want to do. So I want to just make sure on GIMI, in innovation, we embrace diversity and inclusion right from the beginning, because we recognize the consumer market, or the people who are going to be benefiting from this, are males and females. So we cannot exclude females from the thinking process, from identifying problems, solutions, and all that. So this group of people you're talking to is already probably converted, in the sense that they understand that. What they can do is actually, as they work with big companies or governments, or they work with schools and universities, they can certainly impose some of this thinking in their design of projects and everything else. So one thing we do at IXL, as an example, is we try and keep a balanced team of males and females on our executive team and teams and leadership team. But we notice very quickly, and this is just a thought for you, I would like to ask you, is if we don't pay attention, we become predominantly female in our hiring practices. And then when we relax, it goes back to predominantly male again. So managing the tension to make sure that when you put pressure and you think about it, we can move it. But the second we move it, we relax. And when we relax, there seems to be a natural tendency to move it back again. And similarly, when I talk about my son and my daughter, both of them had the same education, hopefully in an unbiased environment, but clearly not unbiased. And one has now gone strongly into engineering, and one has gone strongly into the social sciences. And because society pressure, their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their friends, males and females, will also influence what's going on around them. And so there is a lot of pressure to keep the status quo. Social pressure, unwritten rules, parenting styles, cultural rules, whatever they are. What are the things that you can provide as guidance to a university, to a company, to a parent, saying, this is something you want to pay attention to, because if you relax, we go back to the old way. We have to stay pretty strict on saying this is a non-negotiable. And therefore, our HR policy must be 50-50, our staffing teams or projects should be 50-50, or our client teams, when they come to work with us, is 50-50. What can we do that would be not offensive, it's exercisable, and people would say, yes, let's do this. Easy KPIs, easy things to monitor to make sure and you don't have to preach to us. We are believers on diversity and inclusion, but we recognize that if we don't pay attention, it slides back to the old way. And the old way is not good. I give you a flow for a few minutes, and then meanwhile, the people who have questions, please put them in the chat. And as we see your heads going up, we'll pull you up to ask your questions. So Joanna, how do we stay on track without thinking we got there and then we relax and it goes backwards?
Well, the first thing I will say, Hatundra, will be that first is recognition. We have to recognize that we have gender bias. That will be the first thing. If you don't change your mindset, you won't move. If you change your mindset, you can move forward. So if we do recognize that we have gender bias, no matter what my role is, it means, for example, if you are a father, mother, leader, or a politician, whatever your role is, the first thing will be to recognize that we all, included women, have gender bias. And this gender bias is since we are very, at early stages, how we are raised by parents. Everything we listen, it is transformed later as a belief, then as a behavior, which is what we see now in our society. So first thing will be that. In organizations, what you can do is start open conversations to what unconscious bias everybody has in the organization, and how can we start creating solutions towards that. Another thing will be to take affirmative actions. Once we recognize deal with that, we have to start creating affirmative actions. What does it mean, affirmative actions? It means, although not everybody will be in agreement, we do have to bring solutions to start closing the gap. One of the discussions here will be, for example, the quota. No, what if we have this 50-50? What? This should be merit. This should be talented people working in a job position. I do believe that too. And we have a lot of talented women too. But what is the problem? Generally, the recruitment or the selection process is always or has been always also gender bias. When we call somebody for a position, when we have the 3 final people for a position, for example, we should care about having women in the recruitment positions. Think of the funnel. Think of that if we have 10 people asking for the position, if we have 50-50, then maybe we have the same number going through the final, and then the final position will be for that talented guy, no matter if it's a woman or man.
I like that, Joanna. What you're saying is, hey, we understand it's 50-50. Try your best to do that. Stay on top of that. We know there's biases in place and all that. We have a second issue. It normally happens in this sort of situations is historically we just didn't have enough females in engineering. So when I used to work in Motorola, when you looked at people to promote, majority of the people who were engineers were all men in the 70s and 80s and 90s. So the promotion would always go kind of in that way from the talent pool that was available. We're trying to equalize that talent pool. But what would happen is the number of people available for this was not there. Now I'm gonna turn this story around for you. So we were working as a consulting team for Cadbury Schweppes. And the woman who was the client said, I'm interested in beverages for the future. And we brought our consulting team, and this is like about 2004, and the team was predominantly men. Because management consulting back then was still kind of a very male-dominated, hard lifestyle, on the road kind of things, which is not really good for the 3 jobs that you said women are doing in addition, right? So it was hard for women to do the 3 jobs. And the client looked at us and said, how the hell are you guys going to be able to understand what women want and what women need, and even innovate around solutions of beverages and packaging and location and distribution if you're just a bunch of guys there? Go away, go find some women on the team. And this client was very powerful. So we did that because we were kind of forced to, right? But that sort of leadership has also helped a lot in terms of driving the understanding sometimes that we can make do with the teams that we have versus go find the right team that is for the right problem. And ultimately our society is 50-50. And therefore it should be a 50-50 types of teams in everything we do. So the leadership side was also very important in driving this kind of things. So I really think those are important issues of how we take it on, because it's easy to find a reason why not to have balanced teams. That's easy. There aren't enough talent. There's not enough people are available. We lost so-and-so person because she went to have a baby or something else. We'll use arguments which are very logical, but and then we walk away from it. But instituting this sort of mindset is harder. It's really harder to do. I have a question for you in terms of engineering and sciences and problem solving and this kind of things, which are also where we are seeing a big gap for whatever reason, where as we drive women on one side, men on the other side, or boys on one side. Is there anything that we can do as corporations to kind of be role models to children in terms of saying science, technology, engineering, or coding are also very exciting professions for younger people to get excited about? Because what they see, and what I like very much about what you did was, I was a nerd. I was a geek. I was a physics guy. I was an electrical engineering guy. And yes, guys made fun of me. And perhaps even girls made fun of me because it wasn't cool to be a geek, right? But the fact that you're calling yourself a geek squad, the geek stuff, I think that's the important part, is to change the definition that being a geek is not a bad thing, because it gives you an ability to be creative, innovative, do things differently. On that front, can you tell a little bit about that word geek and making it cool, nerd, making it cool? And therefore women are going to say, I want to be that. Versus us guys, even guys struggle with the word nerd or geek.
Well, what I think is that you cannot be what you cannot see. When we think about girls, for example, and talking about the role modeling, is that for years what we see in the news, in the newspapers, everywhere in the media, everywhere when we talk about power positions or decision making, is women, is men. And that's what girls see. So we don't give them much projection of what they can become in the future. So that is the importance of role models. That's why some of the collaborations we do with the private sector or with other sectors is to, for example, record videos, bring these female leaders from different positions to talk to our girls, to talk to other women. So they tell their stories of success or their stories of leadership and how they deal with that and how they became a leader nowadays. And that's very important to have these conversations with girls, that girls really see each other as a potential leader, or how they can, or the different roles they can be in the future. That's something that we have in 10 years done, because we were worried about why women or girls, little girls, they don't consider that they can be, for example, a president of a nation, or that they can be an astronaut, or that they can be engineer, or that they can be what they want. No, it's because they don't see it in the media. They don't see it in the content they consume. They don't see it at school. In the science class, the teacher is only showing them this male success case, which is true, the male case, but don't have enough time to go and look for women success cases. The only women, if I ask you now a question, give me names of women in science more than Marie Curie, maybe you start thinking, okay, let me see if I remember in my science class, who else is a woman in science? If we talk about women in technology, then maybe we have more chances, but always when we refer to leaders in tech, we say, oh, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and more men, and it's harder for you to think of women. When it's harder for you to think of women in different areas is because we haven't made visible the many talented women in the history. And that's a problem when we talk about role modeling in girls. I don't know if I'm asking your question.
Yeah, Joanna, this is very good. Thank you for those questions. I had Alba over here, but we had 10 o'clock. And at 10 o'clock, this presentations are supposed to come to an end. So just want to make a first announcement to people who are watching out there. Thank you very much for participating on this GIMI think tank. I think what Joanna has been talking about is very important of equalizing on one side the talent and the knowledge and using that as a way to unleash opportunities that we have not even thought about. There are diseases to still work on, whether it's female diseases. There are problems that females see that we do not see as guys sometimes. There are solutions that women have that could be very different than the solution of guys, approaches which are different, approaches which are more interesting perhaps. And combining all of these things, I think if we start working better with each other, I think we will be able to even move our societies further to say, what else can we do in collaboration, in partnership and all that. I want to encourage each one of you out there as a simple thing. Go to your government if you have a government project and include in there one of the value propositions is equality. Go to your companies and you say, here's a business idea. In that business idea, include in there that not only is it profit, but it's also a better communities of equality and genders and everything else. Put that in your profit value proposition. We talk about the triple bottom line, profit, people, and planet. Double click on the people side and ask again, what are you doing for people, in particular gender equality? And if we can do this, we can certainly spread the messages out there. For those of you who are working on project teams, try and staff your project teams with more women. Ideally, try and get them to 50-50 if you can do that. Please do that. And as you're hiring policies, look at your org chart right now and see within your org charts where the gaps are and proactively look for people who are, at the end, I want to be very clear, talented, not just because you have a slot, you fill it, but talented to fill the slots. But look aggressively for it. And you will find the talent. The talent is beginning to emerge everywhere. So I think Joanna has provoked us. I'm inspired. And I hope all of you who've been listening in over here are also inspired by this conversation of what we're doing. We're going to continue this discussion for another 5 minutes. Please feel free to stick around. Alba, you had a question or a thought or topic on this thing, so I wanted to give you some airspace.
Yeah, thank you, HP, and thank you, Joanna, for your presentation. I'm really curious to know what are some of the challenges that create this huge gap between women leaders for the 500 big companies, that it is like less than 9% are leading by women, and the other part is leading by men. So how does it come? What are the challenges that we have such a huge gap in these big companies that are led by men?
Yeah, thank you, Alba, for that question. Actually, there's a recent study by McKinsey. They show how is the progress of women, for example, in their leadership career in organizations, and what are most of the, let's say, insights we can consider when tackling this gender gap in organizations. And they have found, for example, that there's belief that maybe women are weaker than men in order to make decisions when we are, for example, having crisis, no? That maybe we are not that firm, that strict, no? That we're more emotional. And there's a belief that top leaders, for example, chief executive officers, should be someone not that emotional, or maybe not that given to others. No, there are different beliefs in this study, very interesting. I can share with you later on how the beliefs, again, unconscious bias, make that women are not considered in the top of the levels, C-level, senior levels, because of the beliefs that maybe we are weaker, that we are not very good at making decisions when we are in difficult situations, that we tend to be more female, like when dealing with teams, for example. So it impacts results, not in a good way, but in a moderated way. So this is mostly unconscious bias, no? But that's one of the positions. The other will be that maybe we don't have enough experience, we don't have enough studies to go forward, and the others is us. Definitely we have to include us, because we also have beliefs that maybe we are not enough, that maybe we lack of, and when there's an open position in the top leadership, in the C-level, for example, we do think more than twice in order to propose our name in the table, to put our name in the table, because we think that maybe we're lacking of something. And men, there's a study that said that men can have the 60% of all the requirements, and they say, okay, I'm going to present my name on the table. And we women, we can have the 100%, and we think, oh no, maybe we are lacking of something. So there's also a job to do in our mindset, trust ourselves. And there's also true in terms of negotiation. We don't negotiate, for example, our salaries. Men do negotiate their salaries at least 5 times. We only do it twice. If we do it twice, no? We only do one.
Okay.
So there are many.
Joanna, not a good question, Alba. What I would like to do is make sure people are still on the call. If they have any questions, that to reach out to Joanna, connect to her. Maybe she can speak about this topic at your organizations. Maybe you guys can form a franchise of the equivalent thing that Joanna's doing in your own local countries, and think about it. But I think this is a provocation. It's a provocation for all of us. GIMI has a mission, and our mission is to democratize innovation. 1 million people in 4 years now, right? I would know years are getting shorter. In 4 years, we're going to do 1 million people. Now, when we say democratize, we mean everybody, but maybe on the everybody, we got to maybe pay attention to how many are males and females, how many are people from North America or South America, how many people. So we got to make sure there's inclusion in our mission. And if we don't pay attention to it, then we'll probably get the biases playing, and the historical biases, where we'll have 90% males probably in there if we're not careful. So I want us to just ask the question, are you actually leveling the playing field? Are you actually grabbing the talent of females into your organization? Are you being unbiased as you judge each other? And are you also dominating as a male in terms of decision making and ignoring some of the inputs being provided by your teammates? Right? And all those things are there. Be aware of your biases. I like that. That's what Joanna said up front. The second one is be proactive in terms of nudging, encouraging, supporting. But our business of innovation is about consumers and the market and the planet we live in. Half of it is human female, half of it is human man. And children are all affected by it. I also like what Joanna said, that the mothers are the ones who are giving our kids a lot of education and the way they think. And so how they grow up, your sons are affected by how the mother thinks sometimes. And also if you give them power and they're seeing their mothers as equal partners, then you will see something amazing happening. I have a daughter. I want my daughter to be, as you said, Joanna, the president of the United States. I would like her to be that. And we believe we give them an equal chance, but when you see sometimes the choices they make, they may be affected by our societies also. So they are being handicapped. So all of us have daughters, sisters, wives, mothers, and therefore, why wouldn't we want to do what Joanna is talking about? So make this at least intentional. Make this intentional in your proposals you write. Make this intentional on the boards you build. Make it intentional in the way you build your teams, and make it intentional. And I think together, again, in the name of GIMI, together, I believe we can. And as our friend Enrique always says, and we will. So Joanna, see us as your partner on this mission. Help us stay true to the intentions. We may forget sometimes. Help us stay true to that. But see us as an ally for what you're trying to do. I'll give you the last 30 seconds to wrap it up.
No, thank you very much for these closing words. I think this is, I love the word provocative. This is at least for us to reflect and think, okay, this what this thing has to do with me, and if I'm maybe can be involved in the solution somehow. And of course, since Geek Girls Latam, we're very open discussions, open conversations. Maybe you will be wonder and surprised on how people think about it, that you think that everybody think about this in the same way. No, when you open conversations, you really get surprised on all the job we have to do together in order to start closing the gap. Then I'm very happy and very honored to be sharing this with you. Thank you, Hatinra, for the invitation again. For everyone that lasted this hour with us, and very open and available to continue talking about the topic. And of course, if you really want to collaborate, can continue talking in the future. Thank you, Hatinra.
Thank you, Joanna.